Welcome back to Gospel at a Glance. I'm Andy, and I'm so glad you're here. We are still in Matthew 12, and Jesus is responding to a very serious accusation. The Pharisees have seen Jesus heal and restore people over the last couple of episodes, but instead of responding to that evidence, they've claimed his power comes from evil. Jesus treats that accusation as a window into something deeper. In today's passage, he explains why speech matters, not as casual talk, but as evidence of what someone has already decided about God's work. This is not a passage about watching every word in everyday conversation, but it is about how repeated speech reveals a person's spiritual orientation. So let's take a look at today's scripture. This is Matthew 12, 33 through 37. And this is from the ESV translation. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or make the tree bad and its fruit bad, for the tree is known by its fruit. You brood of vipers, how can you speak good when you are evil? For out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. The good person out of his good treasure brings forth good, and the evil person out of his evil treasure brings forth evil. I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give account for every careless word they speak. For by your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned. And that is today's scripture. Jesus begins with a basic teaching image, and we've seen this one quite a few times already. Trees produce fruit that matches what they are. A good tree produces good fruit. A bad tree produces bad fruit. Jesus isn't talking about effort. He's not saying try harder to produce better fruit. He's talking about the source. Fruit does not make a tree good or bad. Fruit shows what the tree already is. The fruit reveals. Jesus applies this image directly to words. Repeated speech shows what someone has already decided internally, what they are inside. If a person consistently speaks in ways that distort the truth, or accuse God or accuse God's work, or label good and healing as evil, the issue is not wording or tone. The issue is the underlying commitment. And speech reveals allegiance to good or bad, right? Like the fruit. Jesus calls the Pharisees here a brood of vipers. And that's not an emotional outburst or an insult. It's a prophetic diagnosis. Their speech is dangerous because it misrepresents God while claiming religious authority. They're not just wrong, they are leading others away from recognizing God's work, because they're calling God's work, Jesus' work that he's doing on God's behalf, evil. And Jesus explains how this happens. Speech flows from what fills the heart. And this doesn't mean that every word perfectly reflects a person's character. It means that patterns matter. One careless statement is not the issue. Repeated, deliberate speech is. The Pharisees around Jesus here, have consistently called good evil. And that consistency reveals something about them. Jesus introduces another image to clarify his point here, and that's the treasure. People pull their words from what they store inside of them. If someone has a lot of truth, humility, and openness to God inside of them, their speech reflects that. If someone stores up suspicion and control, their speech reflects that. And again, it's not just about tone, it's about the overall direction of their speech and what's coming from inside. When Jesus says people will give account for every careless word, he's not referring to everyday mistakes, right? This is something bigger. The word means speech that is empty irresponsible, or destructive. In this context, it refers to authoritative speech that falsely names God's work. The Pharisees are religious teachers and elites. Their words carry weight for a pretty significant audience, a pretty large audience. A lot of people trust them and follow them. And Jesus holds them accountable for how they use that influence. Jesus ends by saying, "By your words you will be justified, and by your words you will be condemned." This doesn't mean that people earn salvation by speaking correctly, by saying the right things. It means words function as evidence. They show how a person has responded to God's work when it was made clear, like Jesus has made it clear here in the gospel. Judgment here is the revealing of reality. It's not sudden. People show who they are over time. So what are the takeaways for today? Repeated speech reveals spiritual direction. Calling good evil is not neutral or harmless. Words can resist God as much as actions can resist God. One's influence increases one's responsibility. And judgment exposes what has already been chosen. Matthew places this teaching after healing and accusation and refusal. Jesus is not warning anxious listeners to monitor every sentence, but he is explaining why sustained resistance to his teaching and God's work shows up in speech. Words matter because they reveal what we've done with what we've seen. And Matthew leaves us with a clear question. When we speak about God's work, are our words responding to it or resisting it? And do our words get in the way of others seeing God's work for what it is? Thank you so much for being here today on Gospel at a Glance. Take a look in the show notes for recommended reading for the scripture from today and from a wrap-up of our takeaways. We also have all of our social links and all that good stuff. And if you've enjoyed the podcast, please share it with a friend, like it, rate it, review it, all those things that we do on social media. Until next time, have a wonderful day.